Good evening. This is Zach Ditmar, production manager for Fish Talk Magazine. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Live with Lenny. Tonight we'll be talking about fishing Chesapeake Bay reefs, specifically artificial reefs. I had the opportunity to go out with Lenny and some folks from CCA this week, and we had a blast. We'll get into that a little bit later. First off, I'd like to just run through the winners of the June Great Chesapeake Invasive Count. I'd also like to mention that tonight's episode is presented by Yamaha. So the Great Chesapeake Invasive Count is a year-long program for Chesapeake Bay, Maryland, Virginia waters, and any northern snakehead, blue catfish, or flathead catfish you catch, you can enter into this for free to participate. We're using the iAngler app for that. Register for free at ccamd.org/count. And each month here on Live with Lenny, we're announcing the winner. So here are the winners. Again, free to participate, you get some cool prizes. So first up, we have Benjamin Siegel. He gets a live bait angle cooler that's got an aerate built in. You can use it as a cooler. You can add rod holders to it. It's super awesome. I have one on my boat. Use it every trip out. All right, next up, we've got Lindsay Staten. She gets a pair of Marucci sunglasses. Now, that actual pictured sunglasses is not the one. Lindsay, you'll get to choose any one you want. You get a gift card for that. Also, Cody Boyd, you also get Marucci sunglasses. So very cool. Ted Karski, you get a CCA plier and knife set. Pretty awesome. And last but not least, Mark Shackelford. I know that name. I think he contributed to our Fish for a Cure campaign last year. You get a fish grip and a fillet knife. Awesome. Congratulations, everybody. And you know what? I forgot. Lenny told me not to forget, but the audience, the mic in the audience wasn't working. So, give everyone a round of applause for that. So again, ccamd.org/count. And if you're watching and you were one of those winners tonight, you can go to this website /invasive-count-winners and select if you'd like to pick up your prize at All Tackle in Annapolis or have it mailed off to you. All right. Now that we're through all that, it's time for Lenny. What's happening, man?
Hey, Zach. Man, you kind of flew through those winners. I'm like waiting, but I didn't see my name pop up.
I'm embarrassed to say that I haven't actually submitted an invasive yet this year. So
what?
No, I have not. Actually, no snakeheads yet. I've only targeted close to home here in Annapolis, and haven't had any luck, and haven't gone catfishing yet this year. So
well, much to my surprise, I actually did get a snakehead this year in Ramsey Lake off the South River. I was shocked. Very salty zone, right near the mouth of the river, but there it was. Go figure.
That's awesome. We did see that one down in Smith Creek, which was very unusual. It looked lost in that salty water.
Yes, it did look very lost. So before we get into the hot bites happening right now, do we have any other announcements, events going on, anything else of that nature, or does that pretty much cover it?
There's a lot of events coming up. Make sure you go over to fishtalkbag.com and check out our calendar of events. Always lots of cool stuff coming up. But more importantly, I wanted to mention that next weekend on the 20th over at Cherry Beach, Salisbury University is hosting the 3rd annual Nanticoke River Invasive Fishing Derby. It's sort of a friendly, fun tournament, and they'll be examining stomach contents and everything. And if you're participating in that, you can also concurrently participate in the Great Chesapeake Invasive Count. That's all virtual, so you can kind of do it all both. In any other blue catfish or tournament or snakehead tournament you're doing on the bay, you can participate in both. So maximize your time in the water, and you can win some cool prizes like we just went over.
And those are some nice prizes. I mean, that angle bait cooler, man, I've seen that come out on your boat many times.
And I have that fish grip too. It's a solid fish grip. I can't. Dave was wearing those sunglasses on the water the other day, and he seemed to like them a lot.
And I saw Ted one there. He won some of the CCA tools, and Ted is another Fish for a Cure supporter who awesome. I got to say I really enjoy fishing with. We have a good time when we go out. All right, well, let's get to what's hot and what's happening, because I'm sure folks want to hear about the hot new bites. What do we got? What's our first slide?
All right, let me step away here.
Bring it up. And I'm going to apologize to everybody for the sun streaming through my shade. I was unable to get the appropriate amount of shade going here. And I even tried hanging a towel over it, and it just wasn't working. So I'm afraid we're going to have a kind of a pixelated picture tonight.
We're going to need a studio. real.
Yeah, I got to do something about that. Here's slide number 1. We have a cobia, which, that is our good buddy Kevin there standing in front. And I was informed, to be sure to tell everybody, that this fish got caught despite his input. But the cobia are coming on nicely. It was right at the beginning of the season. We weren't hearing much north of like Windmill Point. That's changed now. These fish are moving north. We've got confirmed reports all the way up to the targets. Haven't really heard any or seen any solid pictures that I can verify are fish north of there. But there are some coming from there. Most guys are doing best when they're chumming and using bunker and eels for the bait. Haven't gotten any verified trolling reports yet, but I'm sure it's happening out there with the red hoses behind the planer. That's definitely a good way to do it. Sight fishing been really tough. We've just had an awful lot of windy days, a south wind constantly churning up the water. Sight fishing has been a little bit difficult. Although all the way down the bay, down towards Cape Charles, there it has been possible to sight them. Those fish have been a little finicky. We've gotten multiple reports from people who are saying, hey, I saw 20, only got 1 or 2 bites. So tempt them. That includes with live bait too, by the way. All right, what's our next hot bite here, Zach? What do we got? Oh, flounder. Man, it has been nice to hear about some keeper-sized flounder being caught all the way up into the lower bay as far as Point Lookout. That's our contributor, Eric Packard, in case you didn't recognize him, the man who fishes every day. Recently got the Maryland Master Angler Award, so that's a very cool thing. And he got a fish up to 20 inches. So, really nice flounder. I know, Zach, I believe you went back down there and you guys only caught unders, right?
Yeah, they were shorts.
Yeah. So,
but a diverse species, though. Lots of different, 5 different species that day.
It's not going to happen for everybody every time, but you got a good shot at flounder. And, I think maybe it was 10 days, 2 weeks ago, we got several reports from someone who was fishing near Smith Point who got multiple keeper flounder. So pretty darn cool. All right, what do we got next? Oh, the redfish. Now, these big reds, you expect these to get caught down south right about now, right? And they are. Multiple reports down by the CBBT, particularly near the islands. Again, fish have been finicky. A lot of guys have been having a tough time on the weekends in particular when there are a lot of boats around. Tough time getting them to bite. You really got to tease them. But, and this is a big but, people, this fish was caught up near Salmon's Island. And this is really early in the game to start hearing about these big fish being all the way north. But keep your eyes peeled. They got 3 this day. It's a surprise, but hey, surprises happen on the bay. So be ready, because these fish, I'm saying at this point, they can pop up anywhere in any of the normal areas you might see them, say from, the Stone Rock all the way down. Anywhere from there, it's a possibility. What's our next big bite? Rockfish. Well, this picture doesn't show it quite as well as I was hoping. This was right at daybreak. The scoop with rockfish at this point, pretty much everywhere you're finding them, which is, there's some as far south as the Potomac that have been showing up, not much south of there. But from there north, it is a game of being on site before the sun is up or as it's going down. Once that sun breaks the horizon, you got maybe a half an hour, and then after that, there's just not much going on. These fish really are going into hunker down mode. Personally, on the South River and the surrounding area, the last time I went out, I fished 5 o'clock until 7:30 without a single bite, and then from 7:30 to 8 o'clock, boom, 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 boom. It was rapid fire bites. The fish were on. But man, they really, they don't like this heat any more than we do. And these fish are not happy about this heat, and they're staying in the shade, and they're not biting until the sun is really eliminated from the equation. All right, Zach, let's get on to our reef fishing. We're going to talk reef fishing tonight. There are a ton of reefs.
Oh, wait a minute. You had another slide.
I have another slide? I missed a bite?
Oh, no, never mind.
Sorry about that. Trying to throw me off track.
No,
You're messing with me.
I'm messing with you. But hey, Lenny, why don't you? It's a good time to announce tonight's giveaway and how that.
I have not done that yet. Yes. So tonight, people, we're going to talk reefs, and wherever you are on the bay, you got lots of reefs very close by. There are reefs all the way up north, running all the way down south, Maryland water, Virginia water, doesn't matter. And these reefs don't always get quite the play that they probably should. There's a lot of really good stuff on these reefs. Kevin's mentioning the Patapsco slowed down. Absolutely. But if you get there right at daybreak and right at sunset, that's when it can happen. It's just not happening midday anywhere. It's amazing.
He also asked if it's true that trophy fish give Eric Packard Uncrustables so he doesn't catch them.
Oh, that may be accurate, Kevin.
I think he's over the Uncrustables. I think he overdid it on the Uncrustables.
Really?
Yeah, he doesn't like them anymore.
Oh, I've seen those Uncrustables come out many a time.
Maxed out. They're a great snack, by the way. That's not a paid endorsement. Gary mentioned earlier, this was earlier when we were talking about blue cats, that you can actually, any recreational angler can get a license to sell blue cats to market, not person to person, for just $15. I thought it was $25, but I have to check on that. But it's ridiculously cheap.
And you just fill out the paperwork. It's not like you have to jump through any hoops or get any other licenses. That's all there is to it.
So if you have a local fish market, someone selling fish at a farmer's market, you can reach out to them and see if you can sell them some pounds. Yeah, all right. He's having an eclipse over here.
Evidently, I have to replace my window shades. This is very bad. Look, I can shade the camera with my hand. I'll try that for a little while. See how long that lasts. So these reefs, as you mentioned, we fished on Tuesday at one of them, and the real neat thing about them is you get tremendous species diversity. You're not necessarily always going to catch the biggest fish in the world or whatever, but you catch a ton of fish, and they're just all over the place. So what we have tonight for a prize is from Wayne Young, a Chesapeake Reefs 2 book. And, it's funny. Someone mentioned earlier to me that one of the best resources to learn these reefs is Wayne's books. And that's absolutely true. They really are. We also do have a page on Fish Talk where we've listed out all the reef articles. Can we put up that link, Zach, if you have it? And you can go to this particular page and just look at all the different article titles. And if there's a particular reef that you want to find, that's the wrong link. No, the Fish Talk link that has the reef articles. There we go. If you go to this particular page on Fish Talk, or if you just type in, reef articles in the search box, you'll get to it. And it lists out all the different articles that Wayne's published in Fish Talk that talk about all the different specific reefs and give the layouts for each. There's some really good ones. Like the one on the cell comes to mind. It's just amazing how well it's detailed, and it lays out, every little piece in that reef. I'm going to have to lower my hand. It's getting tired, and the picture is going to stink again, but so be it. Why don't you take us to the first slide here, Zach? And, folks, we encourage everybody to ask questions. Just pop it into the chat. We'll get them answered. And if you ask a question tonight, you'll be entered into the lucky drawing to win that book. And Wayne will send it out to you. You'll get it. You don't have to lift a finger, do a thing. So it's pretty darn cool. All right, go ahead, Zach. Take us to the slide there. So look, here's just a smattering of fish you can catch on any one of these reefs. Croaker, flounder, black drum, white perch, bluefish, spot, tons of spot, sea bass in recent years, and we did even catch a keeper sea bass on Tuesday. If you're a little farther down south, you may well get sheep's head, tautog, and, oh, shucks, what's that last one? I can't quite. Zach, can you make that last one a little bigger for us? Red snapper? Okay, well, maybe not yet. But look, people, the way things have been going in the bay, it may happen sooner rather than later. We did hear about a couple red snapper that were caught late in the year, last year, off of Virginia Beach at some of the inshore wrecks. And, last year we had some little grouper being caught in the bay. We've got the pompano coming into the bay. Hey, man, all bets are off. Okay, all bets are off. And sooner or later, you never know, we could be getting these snapper. And we have a special guest who is going to come on to talk to us about some of this reef diversity. Can we bring him on, Zach? What's happening, David?
Hey, man, how are you?
I'm doing good.
I'm just glad we're not going to talk red snapper policy, because you want to talk about one complicated fish that the feds continue to fail managing well. Man, that's one of them. They're everywhere in the South Atlantic and the Gulf, and unfortunately in the South Atlantic, there's one day of fishing in the federal waters this year, at least in Florida. It's a mess, but gosh, they're a fun fish, and I hope I live long enough to see them above Hatteras.
It is a mess, and I'm telling you, man, sooner rather than later, I think it's going to happen. We're seeing all kinds of stuff show up. I mean, shoot, the cutlass fish, right? Who would have predicted that 5 years ago?
Well, and who would have predicted that they taste so darn good?
Yeah, really. So Tuesday, you were on the boat. We were fishing the reef. We're fishing real simple stuff, just sabikis, bottom rigs, little spoons with fish bites on them. How many species did we catch? 6, 7?
6, yeah.
We got sea bass, toadfish, bluefish, spot, croaker, silver perch. What else did we get? Did I go down the whole list? We didn't get any flounder, which I was surprised at, but the flounder have not made it up this far yet.
Are we counting a hook mussel and a barnacle as species, or do they have to be?
I don't think we can count those.
Well, you know what we did not hook when we brought up the bottom a few times is I never saw anybody hook one of those tunicates, little sea squirts.
We did not get any sea squirts. It's odd.
Yeah, but that's pretty common.
Yeah. But anyway, bottom line is there's just all kinds of stuff on these reefs.
How big was that one sea bass, and who caught it?
14 inches, and you know who caught it. God dang it.
But in full disclosure, I snagged it in the side, which, I'm assuming it was going after my micro fish bite on my Chesapeake sabiki. But who knows? But we snagged it in the side, and it's been enjoyed as a meal now. So
Kyle's asking which reef. Kyle, we hit Tillman Reef, then we ran down to the Gooses, and then we ran up to the Airplane Wreck Reef. Isn't there a different name for that reef? I think they got a different name for it now.
The reef is Cook's Point, but it's been named Clint Waters Reef in honor of somebody I called earlier today, the godfather of this reef concept of anglers working together. He was a leader at MSSA in the chapter that's now become the Midshore Fishing Club, and so that reef was named in his honor many years ago. It was great fishing. It still is, always has been, but it's about to get better because we're waiting on a permit approval through the Department of Environment. DNR, to be specific, is waiting for that permit to get opened up. And we have a whole bunch of reef balls stacked up ready to go there to further enhance it, but great spot.
Now, Herb's asking, are you anchoring on the reef structure or drifting? Minn Kota spot lock's a game changer. Herb, I'm going to ask you to hold back. We're going to get there. We're going to talk about that. But before we get to the actual reef fishing, we did want to bring in Dave to talk to us a little bit, particularly about how people can contribute to this. They can help build these reefs, right?
Absolutely. So people can help so many different ways, no matter what your, what you may have to offer from a donation perspective, financially, or the time you have, or your strength, all those types of things. We come together as a grassroots organization to build these reefs. And one way we're doing it is a great example is this weekend. It's the 4-year anniversary for a local nonprofit called Defensores de la Cuenca, which is Defenders of the Watershed. And so they're having a big party at Sandy Point on Saturday and Sunday, and we're building reef balls there. So people can go on our website and see that on our calendar, RSVP, and come and check it out. And so that's here and now, Saturday and Sunday. Reef ball builds are a 2-day activity. We ask folks to come out and give what they can time-wise. So that's going to be a big one. We do this work throughout schools, but we also do it with corporate partners and nonprofit partners. We have a structure where folks can reach out. There is a donation level for our corporate partners, a lower one for our nonprofit partners, and we like to get creative in how we can help fundraise collectively to make sure that we can continue to do these programs with as many people as possible. Last year we did, I'm going to get the number wrong. I think it was 34 reef ball builds last year, which is actually double that in number of days of volunteer engagement, and then double that again when you consider our staff work to get that done. And that's a lot considering there's only 52 weeks in a year.
So we missed one thing there. You mentioned the reef ball build this weekend at Sandy Point. What was the timing on that?
Oh, so that one's, I think it's 10 to 12, if I'm not mistaken.
10 to 12?
Each day, yeah. It's on our
Okay.
website each day. You can RSVP one day or the other. We also have a link tree that folks can find if they've engaged with me in email, and we put it out there on social. And we're going to be, you can't miss it on social. Following us on Instagram or Facebook is a really good way to stay up to date on stuff we're up to on that front. So again, we have a couple more on the calendar. None that right this moment I want to direct folks to, but there's a lot of ways people can get involved. I think that's the most important take-home message on the habitat front. When you go to our website, you'll scroll down and see a section that says Habitat Today, Fish Tomorrow. That's a place folks can donate, and then our calendar is the best place to look for upcoming events. And then if there's not an event, reach out to us. Information at ccamd.org is the way to get our team. It's a general mailbox that all of us can grab from and answer things accordingly. Jesse Howe, our assistant director, does a fantastic job of working with companies and partners to build these reef ball programs out, and we work together to execute them. I just caught the eye of Yamaha in the corner. We do this thanks to a corporation like them, a great international company making the best outboards. They're supporting us through their Right Waters program for the Living Reef Action Campaign. So there's lots of ways folks can get involved from the individual up to the corporate level. And we're always willing to build new partnerships. And I spent quite a bit of time today talking with Eastern Shore leaders about a new capital campaign we're going to launch to actually fund another reef ball trailer for the Eastern Shore, so we can continue to expand our potential partnerships. And we also partner so well with Captain Monty Hawkins, who's a great motivator, a great leader, a great mentor of the work I do at CCA, building reef pyramids. So there's so much more to come is the biggest take home. And with the more people that want to get involved to help out in different ways, the better we can do and the better fishing we'll have.
And what's funny? You just mentioned Yamaha and Yamaha Right Waters giving support for this. And it's funny, I forgot to mention that when Wayne told me he was willing to donate a book tonight to be a prize, door prize for anyone asking any questions, he mentioned he's got a 75 on his skiff, which he loves. And I was just like, oh, well, that's perfect.
Yep. I won't say anything disparaging about anyone ever in their choice of outboard motor, but I will tell you, you can see a Yamaha customer is somebody that has good taste. I used to be one until I had to sell my poor little my poor boat. In fact, I do have a never mind. I have a Yamaha.
All right, well, let's get to the fishing. I think we should get to how to fish these reefs. What do you say?
Absolutely.
All right, well, Zach, why don't you pull up the next slide then? Because a lot of people are going to be going, wait a minute, Tillman Reef, Clint
Waters.
Do you have a quick second to address Gary's question from a minute ago?
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. I missed it. There are a ton of tiny croaker in the bay every year, but never catch a keeper. They grow fast. Where do they go? Gary, I wish I knew. It's driving me nuts, man. But that is very true. It's been going on, 6-7 years. We've had tons of little croaker. And then it seems like the next year, you might get a couple 6, 7, 8 inches. I think the biggest we caught on Tuesday was 7 inches, maybe. It was like pushing towards a keeper, but not there. Mm-hmm. And, man, it just seems like they don't come back big. I wish I had an answer for you. Dave, you got any answer?
A couple. There's a lot of there's been the cycles of croaker have been observed. We've had similar cycles in the past, is what I think we're seeing now. And if I'm not mistaken, it's like a 30-year type period of ups and downs. And the last I heard somebody talking about this in analysis that was done, it made a lot of sense to me. And I know DNR did some of this analysis as well, looking at the habitat suitability throughout portions of the bay, because the dead zone and some of the long-lasting dead zone impacts have really impacted any health, any oxygen, any life on certain areas of the bottom. And I don't know the time scale in which that's really occurred and if it correlates with the decline in croaker abundance. But it could in some ways. I mean, folks always have to think about the water itself is habitat. These animals need to have food. If the bottom's dead, there is no food. And so there's only so much capacity. There's also all these challenges in our ecosystem, whether it be taking too many menhaden or too many predators like a blue cat. So a lot of the balance of these species is going to change. This is also a common thing that is forecasted and observed as temperatures change in waterways and weather patterns change. A lot of climate change. So, all these are mitigating factors that kind of go, okay, it makes sense that we're not seeing as many croaker as we used to.
Well, and they are cyclical. There's no doubt about that. It's no different than the weak fish. The weak fish in my lifetime have been boom or bust. And there have been 2 different cycles that I've seen where it's been amazing and then they're just absent. But then they come back. The crazy thing is we keep seeing the baby croaker, and you would think that, 5 years later it would get better and better and better. Although I do remember Michael Buckley's book, Voices of the Chesapeake. He interviews a waterman who actually talks about catching croaker until, then they disappeared. And then, much later in his life, catching croaker again. So hopefully that'll happen soon. Zach, I think, did we just have another question pop up and then go away? I think I might have missed it.
They were just comments, but
yeah. Well, and I think you're exactly right on that. I think I can't recall. I sit on the board that reviews spot croaker and those species, and I know that they're tough to assess. There's another issue which actually exists with red snapper as well, where there's this major juvenile bycatch issue with shrimp trawls, and so that's something that's hard to quantify. And I know the studies that have been done in North Carolina are pretty scary. The sheer biomass of juvenile fish that are lost in the shrimp trawls, and CCA North Carolina is heavily involved in that. There's no question there's a correlation between our experiences with abundance and that activity. It's just, these are all the same genetic strain. And when there's good spawning, there's good survivability and good habitat, we're going to see more of them. And the opposite is true with the opposite. And these are short-lived species too. Spot aren't going to get more than 3 to 4 years old. I don't recall the exact life cycle in croaker, but it's not much different. They're relatives. So fingers crossed.
We'll see. Let's cross our fingers and hope they come back.
Yep.
All right. Let's get into how to fish these reefs. Or actually, first we're going to get into how to find these reefs. Zach, you got a slide for me? There it is. So this, people, is Virginia's interactive map, which does a really good job. And you can see all the red blocks, locating each of the reefs. Maryland has one too. It's a little buggy right now. I am told that they're working on that. Hopefully we'll have a better one soon. But at least for the Virginia reefs right now, it's really easy to map. And if you're in Maryland waters, never fear. Zach, next slide, please. There is a really good, I guess you'd call this a holdover from Mari. It was originally their list of locations. The GPS coordinates are still good, right? Coordinates don't change. So all these different reefs, they're all listed out. You can get the solid coordinates there for you. Again, you can go to Fish Talk Mag to our reefs article and, kind of use that to match up with some of these names so you can figure out exactly where they are. It's not terrifically complex to figure them all out. And all these reefs they're public. They're built by the public. They're built by CCA. They're all for all of us to enjoy. So all these locations are put out there. A few of these reefs are marked, not many. Don't expect to see buoys. Goose's Reef still has one sitting there, but I think that's a weather buoy, isn't it? I'm not even sure that's for the reef itself. Yeah. So generally speaking, you're not going to find buoys at these things. But when you get there, you look at the fish finder, you'll know it because, please go ahead and take us to the next slide if you would, Zach. This is what you're going to see. Now, this is a shot from Cedarhurst Reef. We want to make sure we give credit where credit is due. Dave Gill, thank you for snapping off that sonar image. This is from one of Wayne's articles. And at Cedarhurst, I believe their method of establishing this reef was basically just to shove everything off the side of the barge. So you end up with some pretty crazy structure. And you see pictures like what you see at the bottom there with big chunks of a bridge just, sitting sideways all over the place. Good news and bad news here. That is great habitat for the fish. That's great news, right? Bad news is you lose a lot of gear there. These reefs can be really difficult to fish without constantly snagging. And that goes back, I think it was Herb who was asking about how we do it. And we're going to drive right into that here. But why don't you just go ahead to the next slide, Zach? If you're really brave and you want to try bouncing a jig through this stuff, cast it out, bounce it along the bottom, take it mid-depth, you can catch fish like this right at these reefs. But, man, don't go there with 3 jigs in your box because you'll go home in 10 minutes disappointed. You got to really plan on losing a lot of gear if you do that. The way you can fish this, and I think he mentioned anchoring. You can anchor up, and that will work. It's not ideal because you're stuck in one spot. Now you can slack that anchor line back 10, 15 feet, fish some new territory. But again, it's not ideal. You don't know what you're on. You can't control where you are. You end up with a bigger swing with the anchor, on the anchor line. The longer that line is, the more you're going to swing. Next thing you know, you're snagging again. You can see right underneath of this gentleman's arm. Look, I'm trying to point, but it's like over here. There it is. It's over there. You can see the Minn Kota deployed on the bow of the boat. That's holding it in position with spot lock. That is by far the best way to do it. It is a tremendous advantage over anchoring, much less drifting, which is just a gear killer. And I'm going to go through in a little bit just how I try and work a reef with the Minn Kota deployed. But first, let's talk a little bit about the actual gear we're using. Zach, let's go ahead to the next slide, please. So here we got a plain old bottom rig. Nothing special, nothing complex. 2 hooks, a weight, works great. The Chesapeake Sabiki rigs really do work as well, if not better. They tend to be a little lighter. So if you get a bite from a really big fish, you're probably going to break off, right? That'll happen. But those Chesapeake Sabikis, they work really, really well on a lot of these little reef species. They've got the little red teaser, and they're specific to us here on the bay, because in Maryland waters, you're only allowed to have 2 hooks on your rig. Normal Sabikis have far more. Downside to Sabiki rigs, they tend to snag everything. David, you remember what happened at some point with one of those Sabikis?
How many of them? Oh, what did I catch? What did I snag? A planer line, right?
You snagged a planer line. I think you lost, I don't know, 3 or 4 hooks. And then towards the end of the day, oh my gosh.
Jaleesa. I caught
Yeah.
Jaleesa.
She
Yes.
she just moved within 3 feet of one, and it managed to stick her.
Yep.
That's the danger with these. You got to watch out for that. They do snag you all the, like people, clothing, and you didn't see it. After you left, one of the rods was sitting on a rack, and I was cleaning the boat, and I got one stuck in my shirt.
Well, that poor sea bass got one stuck in its side too. Yeah. So, they work. That's the takeoff.
Very common with those Chesapeake Sabikis. They are problematic. Gary's saying the best way to lose an anchor is anchoring on a reef of steel, never mind the jigs. So, Gary, simple comeback for that. Man, don't drop a good anchor on these reefs. You want to be dropping a reef anchor, which has, a shaft with tines that will bend out, because you got to be able to power out of there, because you're absolutely right. If you drop like a Danforth on one of these reefs, kiss it goodbye. It's a goner. Now, if you don't have a reef anchor like that, really simple. Take a 2-foot piece of pipe, take 3 pieces of rebar, and tack weld them right onto the end of the pipe, okay? And then tack weld a ring on the top of the pipe, and then take that rebar and just bend it up into a J on all 3 tines, and then you got a reef anchor. And if it gets totally snagged in there, which is very likely, you can power, give it some power with the boat and bend that rebar piece straight. You definitely don't want to drop your $200 beautiful anchor on these reefs. You want to use a reef anchor that you can bend out. All right, let's go to the next slide, if you would, please, Zach.
I'm going to pause for a brief intermission here.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Well, David's only got a few more minutes with us. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing with my phone right now. I'm actively texting Zach this picture of reef balls because I'm like, this is my life. It's like, 7 o'clock or whatever it is at night, and I get pictures of reef balls. This is why it's so darn cool. You don't want to anchor up in that, right? And these are going to be in the St. Mary's River Sanctuary in late July. So we're going to be talking about how we're going to be working together to get you all down on the water, because I know we got a St. Mary's grad and we have a media specialist here on the line. So I'm excited about this, because July 25th, St. Mary's, we're doing 2 more of these. We've got a Clint Waters Reef on the schedule. We got Hollicott's Noose on the schedule. I think we're doing more Chesapeake Beach Reef, which we looked at yesterday.
Mhm.
And Tillman is always an easy spot to drop. So stand by for way more stuff hitting the water.
Excellent.
That's a good kind of final comment. But you guys have any more questions before I move on?
Did we miss any of the critical stuff? Let me look at the rest of the slides here. Actually, I have a different screen with some of the other slides.
We have like about 3 or 4 more slides to go. but-
Yeah, no, I think we're good on the slides. Did we have any reader? And look at me. Yeah, this is a magazine guy on the camera going, reader questions. Do we have any viewer questions?
Yeah.
That we might want to pitch to Dave before he goes.
No, but Dave, why don't you go ahead and just give that brief announcement about the
Invasive Sound.
right. So during the closure,
Oh, yes.
Yes.
there's an extra,
Prize. Yeah. So the closure is coming up for rockfish. July 15th is the last day. The 16th, you cannot fish. You cannot target rockfish until the end of July or starting August. Check your eggs. If you're in the count, which is free, you're already registering fish. There's a chance to win prizes. We're going to find out some more winners tonight. We're going to fulfill them through All Tackle. We have some past prizes to still get out, so reach out to us. Moving forward for this period, this 15-day or 2-week period, register for the count for free. The top 3 people that catch the most quantity of blue catfish during that 2-week period, top 3, will get the choice of an 80-quart Engel cooler, a 50-quart Engel cooler, and then a backpack with some tumblers. And so we're going to announce this formally, but I wanted to announce it here tonight to let folks know it's top 3 people that catch the most fish watershed wide are the ones that will win these prizes on the next Live with Lenny in August, because that's when we'll be closing out the July prizes. So just an extra bonus round. Again, there's more stuff coming. And with the invasives count, this is another great opportunity for companies, people, partners to take the lead and work with us, not only to provide product that we can provide to our winners and promote on platforms like this, but we've got some really cool stuff in the rank or in the waiting in the wings. Maybe we'll talk about it next month, about getting people together, sharing our knowledge, doing all things that Fish Talk does so well to connect people to good fishing, good information. We want to do that in person and start having some fun and getting some folks together around the state to learn from each other and pursue some of these species, all under the banner of the invasives count. And as we do that, we will absolutely bring some fun prizes and fun ways to, further award people for participating in this important effort. So again, reach out, let's connect, let's work on some creative ways to work together, especially with other organizations that connect with, lots of different people around our state.
Now, those big Engels, those are some serious prizes.
They are.
Do you know
That's
what the retail is on them offhand?
I want to say that 80's just shy of $400. The 50's probably just over 300.
Yeah, I was going to say they're like hundreds of dollars.
Yes.
And
then,
how much do you have to pay to have the shot at winning them?
you have to go shopping at your local tackle shop and buy some bait. You have to go out on the catfish trail, the Fish Hunt Maryland catfish trail, figure out where to go. You got to go catch your fish. You're making an investment in our local economy. That's good enough for us. Thanks to partners like Yamaha. We couldn't do it without them. We couldn't do it without our members. We couldn't do it without you all. So this is all what CCA is all about, bringing people together to have some fun, get out there and enjoy this stuff. Fishing's complicated, but we can also make it a lot more fun.
That's all. You just gave everybody something to do during the closure. Go catch a ton of blue cats and snakeheads and flatheads and try and win a really expensive dang cooler.
I need to catch a flathead.
I love it. Thank you, David.
Hey, Dave.
We have flathead stuff coming. So go ahead. Sorry, Zach.
I got a couple comments for you. Before you go, 2 questions. Then you go have dinner with your family.
Perfect. All right. So more to come on flatheads. Zach, you and I should follow up on that. I think one of my efforts that we'll be working on. We've got some really cool stuff coming up. Again, thanks to Yamaha. We're going to have some raffles. Somebody might win an e-bike relatively soon. So stand by for that. But anyway, flatheads are on the list. Tim, thank you. I couldn't do the work I do without our members and our partners. I'm just carrying the torch as long as I can. We are what's called the fiscal agent for the state reef program, MARI. MARI has been impacted by COVID with volunteer engagement. We're working on rebuilding that to make sure we have a committee the way we always have to help direct what's happening within the reef kind of category within DNR, at least in the Bay. Captain Monty Hawkins is actually the chair of the Artificial Reef Committee, and as a small business operator, a for-hire captain, and the president of the Ocean City Reef Foundation, he does so much to lead the charge there. So I've been working with him and Mike Malpezzi at DNR. Formerly, Eric Zlokovitz was in this role. And it's tough to kind of keep all the information current and keep the ball rolling. Yes, this is a long answer, but the reality is that what Mike is doing in his role at DNR as reef coordinator is liaising with the other agencies as they deal with like the Key Bridge situation. Today, just on DNR Fisheries Facebook, you'll see they put a bridge slab from the Bay Bridge redecking. They're literally pulling out a chunk of the bridge and laying it down on the bottom of the crane. It's pretty neat. It's almost like Legos. And of course, there's people in the comment sections complaining, but right at Hackett's is getting more habitat right now through this program. So Mike does that work without even anybody really knowing, because it's just important work the state has to do to deal with stuff like demolition of a bridge. So I was asked actually while we were fishing on Tuesday by Mike, what did I think about what locations did I think were best for Key Bridge material? And the devil's in the details with this stuff. You know, the permits that are open is the answer for that. I think that we'll see potentially some use in the Upper Bay. Love Point is one spot that gets a lot of rubble, and of course it's close to the Key Bridge, so it's cost effective to get it there. But the Tangier Sound Reef, which just received many tons of material a couple weeks back, it's right down there on the state line. It's also named after a local leader in the fishing community. It's the Curtis Johns Reef. It's triangle shaped on the map, the permit. That reef just got some material, and I did suggest to Mike that would be another great spot, because we want to kind of share the love, and there's different ways to get this material out in these different places. Last point on the reef material and the bridges and such, you know, you'll see a lot of conflict and arguments, like I mentioned, in the comments section, like always on social media, especially DNR's page. I mean, man, pop some popcorn. But ultimately, think about it like this. These items that we're putting into the water, they don't have anything that's directly toxic that is not already in the watershed. And I'm not saying like we're putting toxic materials down. What I mean is they're highways. They could have things that drip out of a vehicle, things that are, you know, worn out tires, the various things that end up on a highway, that it's already getting washed into our watershed already. And it's kind of tough to think about, but it's the reality of it. What's in the watershed is in the watershed. Could you say that, yes, you could take a bridge material, recycle it, move it out of the watershed, and then it's kind of gone, and there's a net gain and a net, reduction in things that might be bad for water quality? Yes, but it's not that simple. And there's a very rigorous government process to review all this stuff, just like we're all going to find out how complicated it is to rebuild a bridge. This stuff's been reviewed. And when it comes to the trade-offs, it's no different than, we've got a dam at the head of the bay with impacts. We have dredging in the harbor with impacts. We have all these human impacts. In the end, the ultimate net result of the MARI program and being able to take clean, certified rubble into the water is more habitat, more hard spots, more nooks and crannies for the critters. We prefer to focus on at CCA all of our energy on the engineered reef materials, like a reef ball and a pyramid, simply because we think that that's the best choice for us, especially in engaging communities. But ultimately, there is a place for those materials of opportunity, and these permits do consider that, and they are vetted. Doesn't mean you're going to like it all the time, and I understand difference of opinion, but ultimately, as a conservation organization, we are focused on what's best for the bay, and we do thoroughly, think through this work and make sure we're not putting bad things in the bay.
Now, I know you're trying to go to dinner, but hold on a minute.
Yep. Let's
get to Gary's question first, because I'm curious about your answer. Can I make a guess?
Yes.
I'm going to guess 2 years, you get some stuff. 3 years, you get a lot of stuff growing. Is that?
I think that's a good answer.
Good.
I would kind of, in a more technical way, as a policy wonk, go, well, what does the word productive mean? I think that the reefs, you have fish kind of hanging out already. When you add new material to, say, the Tillman Reef, which already has a lot of material, I think fish are going to start hanging out and get interested in it. I think crabs are going to find it quickly. And then what ultimately happens is, over time, you're talking about where the reef is, to take the word productive literally, the reef does produce biomass of animals, right? Fouling organisms that clean the water. It can produce, it provides a new breeding spot for certain animals. It provides more juvenile protection for certain animals. Like, reefs in every shape, size, and kind provide a different protection and benefit for a fish throughout its life cycle, and that's been scientifically proven time and time again, especially in the Gulf of Mexico. They've done some amazing work thanks to CCA's partnership with Texas A&M down in Corpus. Ultimately, we get colonization of fouling organisms in weeks. If it's the warm period, just think about leaving an unpainted boat in the water. That's going to happen to this concrete. Spat, oyster spawning is happening right now. Those reef balls I was showing on my cell phone earlier, those are going to receive, if you saw my reel on CCA's Instagram yesterday, those 5 tanks of spat, 1 is oyster shell, and then 4 are reef balls that CBF is loading right now. I'll be putting the icing on that cake tomorrow. That's going to receive 40 million oyster spat tomorrow. They will soak for over a week. And then July 25th, they're going into the St. Mary's, all things considered, or if everything works out. So 2 weeks, actually. And they'll go out into the St. Mary's. And so those reefs are ultimately productive already. And in the program that we designed with CBF in the St. Mary's for the oyster sanctuary, we're putting in 300 reef balls that are unset. 152 went in last week. We're putting in this next load of about 165 or 75, I think, that will be set. In the end, it'll be 300 unset, 300 set. And the whole goal there is that you've actually created a new generation of oysters and then opportunity for wild set to also connect. And so you'll even get like genetic mixing on the reef is one of those thought processes behind that concept. So it's all cool stuff. And this is just going to be just upriver of the St. Mary's. And this is all DNR was on board on the deployment last week, checking it out and making sure everything's done properly.
Hopefully we'll go look at it in 10 years and you won't be able to tell the difference between the ones that were set and the ones that were not.
That's right. That's right. If you get an area that's high spawning potential, high survival, even with mortality events like St. Mary's has seen, ultimately it has the best chance of really creating that reef veneer of shell that more rapidly becomes that natural reef. There's a great video out there we'll have to find and share at a later date that of Bill Goldsboro talking about his amazement of some of the first reef balls ever placed, thanks to Wayne Young, thanks to Tom O'Connell, thanks to so many great partners. One of them was in Tangier Sound. And there's this classic video. I'm looking at the reef ball, and it's like this. When I see it, I see the video. I'm like, is that in the Caribbean? Like this thing's fuzzy and covered in all these critters you don't even know exist in the bay. It looks like just wild reef. And Bill said, "Man, I wonder if this is what John Smith saw. Look at this. This is like an untouched decade-old reef."
It is mind blowing how much stuff is growing on those reefs, and we got to get back to fishing on those reefs, right?
Get out
here. We're out of time before we get to the fishing part.
I do that every time I'm on here. I said 10 minutes.
Very good at that.
Anyway, gentlemen, thank you, and thank you all listeners. Sign up.
Thank you, Dave.
Get involved.
All right, we'll see you, man. Zach, go ahead and take us right to our next slide, please. Let's get back to fishing. Come on. There it is. All right. So I know I poke Zach faster. So here we see, and of course this is from last fall. You can see I'm dressed for fall. One of my favorite rigs to fish these reefs. That is a 1 ounce GI rain minnow. It's got a single hook on the bottom, which is great. You don't want a treble hook, particularly in the fall when there are a lot of these sea bass around. Although honestly, they're already around. We caught a bunch of them on Tuesday. And the tip of the hook is tipped with just a little piece of fish bites. That right there, I think that was a shrimp flavor. I've also used a crab flavor. And one of the things I constantly heard from people getting on the boat was, well, why aren't we using bait? Why aren't we using the squid? Why aren't we using a minnow? So I asked Zach to tee up a little video that we made last year, which kind of shows why I stopped doing that stuff. All right. I stopped getting the yicky, messy live bait. Zach, go ahead and roll that video for us, if you would.
Oh, wrong one. Sorry, wrong video.
That's the wrong video. What?
Wrong video. I thought I had it loaded. Hold on.
So that was from Kobe Fishing the other day.
Right there it is.
Sonny Bruto here for Fish Talk Magazine. We love the fish bites, bloodworm flavor, use it all the time for panfish. But today we're fishing for sea bass in the Chesapeake Bay, and we want to do a test because usually for sea bass you use these icky, ooey squid chunks, ew, gooey, ooey, no fun at all. Fish bites, nice and clean and neat, comes in a bag. So we are going to put them head to head against the squid chunks and see which catches more sea bass. That's on the fish bites, people. Guys, on the squid.
Fish bites.
Double fish bites. What'd you get yours on, Walt?
Squid.
Fish bites again. Guys, on the squid. Squid versus fish bites. So what happened? Well, bottom line, it was about 50-50. Either way, they were both getting eaten. But the difference is the fish bites I can throw right in the drawer and go home, whereas now I got a big mess with a squid. Honestly, it's all over the boat. Doesn't throw me a whole bunch. So make your own call, people. But squid versus fish bites came out about even. So not only did it come out even with squid, on another occasion we tried it with live bull minnow. Again, it just came out about dead even. So I'm gonna, full disclosure, Fish Bites is an advertiser on Fish Talk. Thank you for that, guys. We love it. But I'm sure the vast majority of you folks out there have been using Fish Bites probably for years, particularly the bloodworm flavor to catch the spot. When it came out, I was a doubter. A lot of us were. We all kind of became accustomed to it. Bloodworms cost approximately $8 million per pound.
Buck a piece.
Right. It's insane these days. And the fish bites work great. So, a lot of people adopted them. I've been really psyched to discover that for all these different species, all these different fish, the shrimp flavor, the crab flavor, this stuff works just as well. And Tuesday, is another great example of that. I never once touched a piece of bait. It was nothing but the bites. And I love it because it's so clean and neat. There was a time when I was younger when I was like, man, I love getting chum up to my elbows, and I didn't care a hoot if I got the boat just trashed with that stuff. These days, I'd kind of rather keep it all neat. So works real well. Joey's saying he picked up a few sea bass at Smith Point on bloodworm fish bites. Can confirm this works. Spot wouldn't touch him that day, though. That's odd on the spot. But they absolutely do the trick. And we got a ton of spot on. I think, Zach, spot was probably more than anything else, right? You think that was?
Oh yeah, we caught a ton of spot.
Yeah, that was probably the highest numbers of anything we caught. Some of them were pretty nice. Not quite eaters, but they were getting really close. Really close. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. And let's kind of look at a tactical maneuver here. So I made this slide up. The big green star is your reef, okay? The wind and the current's coming out of the south. Let's just keep this north at the top, south at the bottom, make life simple. All right, you approach the reef. What are you going to do? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up in spot number 1. I'm going to drop down the Minn Kota, put on spot lock. We're all going to fish vertically with spoons and sabikis and just go straight up and down. We're still going to snag a little bit. We're still going to lose a few rigs, but not so much, okay? Going straight up and down, it's not so bad most of the time. Now, let's say the bite's not good, or we've caught a bunch of fish, but then it slows down, because that'll happen at these reef sites. You can kind of fish out the area directly under your boat to some degree. So next thing, you take it off spot lock. Just let that wind and current push you back to number 2. Hit it again. Hit the spot lock button again. Fish right there vertically. And by the way, before I do that, I'll tell everybody on the boat, hey, let's all reel up. We're going to move a little bit, okay? Now, if you just allow the boat to drift and leave your lines down, you'll have a better chance of getting a bite. You'll also have a way better chance of getting a snag. So I like to bring them up, let the boat slide back, hit the button again, drop them down. X amount of time goes by, bite slows, not happy with what we're getting, whatever. I'll cock the motor over to port and motor us over to number 3 and then press spot lock again. Same thing to number 4. That dries up. I'm going to cross all the way over to the other side of the reef, hit 5, then 6. Eventually work my way back to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, if I go through spots, say 1 through 3, and I'm not catching fish, I'm not continuing this process. I'm already out of there. All right. Insufficient results. Next spot. We're going to a completely different part of the reef, different depth, different reef entirely. Something big is going to change. But as long as there's some level of action, I'm going to work this sort of a process and just work all these different spots throughout the reef. Now, what's with all the little blue dots in the upper right-hand corner there of the screen? I put them up there because in some of these reefs, there's some areas where the structure isn't super thick and it's scattered out. And it's maybe just a reef ball here, a reef ball there, a little chunk of whatever here, a little chunk of whatever there. And when you get into those areas, then you can drift. And honestly, then if you hold in one spot, be it by anchor or spot lock, whatever, it's usually a little slower. Fish are going to be more scattered, just as the structure is more scattered. So in a spot like this, I'll actually set up on the south side of all those little blue stars, and I'll just drift. Now, I'll keep the motor in the water, the electric. I'll keep it in the water. And if we all of a sudden 3 people hook up at once, I'm hitting spot lock. And we'll, see if we can catch a bunch right there. Don't get a bunch of bites again, take it right off. We did do, I think, 1 or 2 drifts on Tuesday through an area like this. The northeast quadrant of the Tillman Reef is sort of like this. Stuff is scattered around. It's smaller, and you can drift through there. We did do it. It was not productive on Tuesday, but that doesn't mean it won't be the next day. It's just one of those things you try as you keep doing different things to see what it's going to take to, get your fish. Well, hey, Walt's saying if you need more than an ounce or an ounce and a half, the current's too strong. Slack tide is good for some species. I found that particularly true with the sea bass. The sea bass, they're not thrilled when the tide is cranking. They're really not. Now, some other fish are, but they in particular are not. It does vary by species. In most of these reefs, Tillman Reef, you're talking like 20 feet of water. The Clint Wooders Reef, you're talking like 20 feet of water. It usually doesn't take a whole lot of weight to get down. An ounce, really should be plenty. The Goose's Reef, we did visit that one briefly. We didn't get any bites there. That's a little deeper. That's like 35 feet. I kind of wonder if maybe, there was some dead zone action going on there that's deep enough to. I'm not sure. I'm really not. But we didn't see fish on the meter or on the side scan, and we didn't get any bites there. So we didn't stay long. But at that kind of depth, which often I'll be fishing in October or so, at that point, then you do sometimes need a little more reef. Kyle's mentioning a big tog at the Stone Rock. That's pretty dang cool. I have not gotten one that far north yet. That is pretty dang cool. And Larry's asking, what about just outside the reef? Most of these reefs, once you get outside, it's a total crapshoot as to if there's going to be anything there or not. Generally speaking, you're going to want to be right on top of that stuff, particularly for the species we're talking about right now. And you want to, it kind of stinks because you got to fight the snags, right? But you really got to be right inside of it. And Zach, go ahead and take us to the next slide, if you would. When you're in these reefs, there's always a chance of something like this happening. This was at the Clint Wooders Reef. I was on a boat, 15, 20 yards away, and I got lucky enough to snap off this picture. I love this picture because look at these kids. They're like, oh, my God, we're getting hit by water from the fish, and they're taking pictures, and mom and dad are trying to pull the fish up. You can see that the rod there is a very small rod. It was not intended for, a big old black drum, but that's what showed up there. This will happen at these reefs. The big black drum in particular really like them. Reds can show up there. Once you get down as far as, say, the Salmon zone, the Point Lookout zone, you could start seeing sheep's head. You could see those tog with more regularity. You really don't know what's going to show up. So it's one of the fun things about fishing these reefs. And what I like to do is when I'm fishing one where there could be some of these bigger fish around, let's say I've got 4 anglers on board. I've got 4 rods rigged up with these relatively small spoons, bottom rigs, sabiki rigs, stuff like that. Then I'll take one rod and rig it with a heavier rod and rig it with some heavier leader with a either a floater rig or a circle hook, 40-pound test leader, something like that. Put on like a big chunk of peeler crab, a large bait, something really big. Could be a live spot. Just pitch it out there, stick the rod up in a rocket launcher or something, put on a live liner. I do it with a live liner rig, put on the live liner, just leave it be, ignore it. Honestly, most of the time what's going to happen is through time, the little fish will peck away something like a peeler crab. Sometimes you get a real surprise, and you get something like a big drum slamming that thing. So, MR, when using bait, sweeper, tog jig versus bottom rigs. So for these particular fish, for tog, oh wait, you're talking tog is in the jig. Okay. So, Zach, did you try a bottom sweeper Tuesday?
I got at least one fish on that.
Do you remember how exactly it panned out? Because you had crab on that, right?
I did. I think it might have been a spot nibbling at it. And when I set the hook, I might have sort of got it in the gill or something. It didn't actually get in the mouth. So it was a smaller fish on a tog jig.
And then you went back to other stuff, right?
Yeah, because I think we
so
decided it wasn't really too many bigger fish.
What happened? So I think this is very situational dependent, because if you had that chunk of crab in a sweeper jig at, say, the cell, or maybe the live bottom down by the targets, then you're talking sheep's head, right? And that could be a better shot at getting them, as opposed to using a bottom rig with a smaller hook and a later leader. I think that's very situationally dependent. It's definitely a good thing to try, good thing to opt for, but it's going to depend on where you are and what fish are there. What are you catching? What might you catch? For rock on the reefs, a lot of current or less current. Rockfish, you want more current. Absolutely, you want more current. And last year, I think it was the first 2 weeks of June, we actually had a really nice little run of rockfish at Tillman Reef. And it was on a flowing current. And it was a matter of casting out and then bouncing that jig on bottom. One of two things happened. You got a bite or you got a snag. It was pretty darn rare that you managed to just reel it all the way in without getting snagged. Now, we were moving around with the electric, and we were, retrieving as many of our jigs as we could. Probably half the time, if you motor over to it and get on the other side of it, you can get that jig back. Half the time you won't. But I actually remember spending an afternoon down there with one of my boys, David, and we caught some good fish doing that. We did probably, I don't know, maybe we lost a half a dozen jigs, something like that. But that was flowing current. The rockfish like that current to move. And many of the fish are going to like it to move. It's, it varies. It's actually one of the cool things about the sea bass is that since they don't love a moving current, that's a fish that in a month like September, October, November, you can fish for rockfish when the current's moving. And then when it dies out and the bite slows down, you just go right over to a reef and start fishing for sea bass. Catch your sea bass, current picks up, the bite drops off. Guess what? You go right back to rock fishing, which, we did that quite a bit last fall. I don't know how to say that. F's flow? I don't know how to pronounce it. How far north can one consistently catch sheephead? Consistently, Virginia waters. You're not going to get them consistently in Maryland waters. Once you get that far up, the word is not, you can still catch them, but the word is not consistently. Now, I noticed the DNR had already reported sheep's head caught at the target ship this year, which is, right at the border there between Maryland and Virginia. I don't have confirmed reports of that. I haven't personally gotten confirmed reports of that, so I can't confirm that. But last year, I think it was a little later last year, I think it was August, we did start to get confirmed reports from the target ship of sheep's head. I know a couple guys who went down there and did nothing. I know a couple guys who went down there and got, 2 or 3. They caught a few fish. It wasn't what you would call gangbusters. If you travel south a little further, get a little deeper, into Virginia waters, you'll have much better luck. Nick got a 10-pounder at the Stone Rock. Is a sheep's head? Because, man, that is cool. That's a cool dang catch at the Stone Rock. Woof. All right. I think we ran through all our slides.
Yep, I think we're there.
We are. And we are only slightly over time this month, which is a little better than last time. I want to thank everybody for joining in. We appreciate it. We apologize.
10-pound sheep's head, yes.
Okay, cool, man. I love it. And the Stone Rock is a great area. It is very much like the reefs. It is Oyster Reef. It's natural reef. And that is a super cool spot. I love fishing that spot. So I said thanks to everybody. What was the other thing I wanted to say? Shucks, I forgot, Zach. What was I about to say? Please tell me.
I don't know. I don't know, but I have a few things to say.
Okay, well, wait. I just remembered. I wanted to apologize to everybody for moving off of the first Thursday of the month, our normal schedule, but I'm pretty sure everybody understands since it was July 4th.
They were busy barbecuing. All right. Well, I just wanted to say a few things. Thank you for Yamaha for sponsoring, this presentation. We couldn't do it without them. And thank you for everyone for tuning in. Great audience. Thanks for all the questions and comments. If you're interested in repower, if you're interested in service, hop on over to fishtalkmag.com/Yamaha. You'll find a whole slew of Mid-Atlantic dealers and service providers. So check that out. And, Rockfish is closing next week. So be sure to get out there and target some invasive species. And like Dave said earlier, whoever catches the most invasive species during the Rockfish closer gets a special prize for the Great Chesapeake Invasive account.
And you know what? If you're farther south than the invasives are prevalent or in a saltier zone, these reefs are a great option. Now, of course, in Virginia, Rockfish has been closed, will remain closed. You got a lot more options in Virginia, generally speaking. But even guys like down there, Solomon's Point Lookout, where, you might not be able to get snakeheads or blue cats without traveling, these reefs will totally be holding fish right on through that closure.
Awesome. Well, a few last-minute questions came in, Lenny. Got a few seconds to field them?
Lightning round them. Pop them on up.
All right. Let's see. Where to go? Okay, Rick asked, he had success for blue cats with shrimp, raw chicken, and hot dogs all over the Potomac. What is Lenny's favorite bait?
For blue cats, so a chunk of bunker, just a plain old chunk of bunker. And I say that because I have also had success with all kinds of crazy stuff. But fish side by side, a chunk of bunker, just if any of that stuff is going to work at any given time, the bunker works. And there will be times when the bunker works, nothing else seems to work. So I like the bunker. I'm a bunker guy on the blue cats.
What about the gizzard shad or the mud shad? Do you like that too?
So, the Virginia guys swear that is the ticket. And I don't disagree. But if I run over to the tackle shop, they don't always have mud shad. They've always got bunker. So I'm generally just buying it.
All right. We did forget something. So we'll lightning round these questions. And
oh, God, what did we forget?
I'll tell you. All right. Rob asked, caught bigger sea bass near Tangier in the fall than Southern Bay. Less pressure, maybe. What do you think?
So I don't know, Rob, because the sea bass thing, they've always been around, but they've always been really small in the bay. The last few years, I don't know, maybe 3 years, is really the first that I started hearing of people catching keepers. And then last year, I targeted them much of the fall, and keeper-sized fish were a regular thing. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think it's a pressure thing. I think it's probably, for whatever reason, these fish came up and just decided to hang out. They didn't leave. Zach has this evil grin. Do people see this evil grin on his face?
I'm just reading comments. Nothing to do with you.
I'm wondering what I say.
Nothing to do with you.
All right.
Okay. What is the furthest north you think you can consistently catch trout right now?
So I'm going to assume that's Specks because we don't really have weak fish these days, although there have been some showing up along the coast. Consistently, man, that's tough. Probably the Tangier and Point Lookout South, because there was a consistent bite in the chop tank. That didn't last. It was like, what was that? The last 2 weeks of May into early June, maybe. And then it kind of dried up. A few scattered ones are showing up now, but it's not like a consistent thing. A few scattered are showing up towards Poplar and Eastern Bay, but it's not a consistent thing. Consistently, you're going to be going down to like the Potomac or the Tangier and south. Now, hopefully that will change. I would expect that to change, particularly as the water cools off. But that the bite from in the northern area. The chop tank bite's a big disappointment, honestly, for me personally, because there was a really good bite going there early on, but it just disappeared, and then became a scattered fish here and there. So
I was goofing because Kevin said, "Can you take us out with more of Lenny watching videos of Lenny?" I think he was referring to you watching your own video about fish bites. It cracks me up. I think that's what he's talking about. What the heck are you talking about?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Anyway, all right, a couple more questions. Would it be worth slow trolling live bait around the wrecks with a trolling motor?
Interesting question.
We did do that. We actually caught a few of those spot and live lined them, and we had insufficient results, as you would say.
But we didn't slow troll them.
No, we just kind of we just put them out in the current, and we didn't get any hits, and we you know.
I can't say I've ever tried it. So my first answer is I don't know. I've never tried it, but I'm going to back that up by saying we did catch a lot of little bluefish. You will find Spanish mackerel around the reefs when they're around. They're not sitting over the structure like the other fish. They're usually zooming through and chasing bait. But when there are larger fish present, I'll bet that would be worth doing. I would try it. I would try it. The southern wrecks too, once you get, again, Point Lookout South, Salmon South, you're going to find cobia hanging on these wrecks too, so slow troll a live bait by that guy.
How's
asking how the crabbing's been. Up and down, man. Been some really good days, been some really tough days, but part of the problem is this never-ending south wind. What is it with this south wind we've had, people? It's blowing 15 knots plus out of the south, like constantly.
I've only been out twice, and I got a bushel both times, but I have this. Secret garden. Kevin, I should have made you sign an NDA. All right.
I've tried, but man, when that wind is blowing out of the South River is just torched. It's been so tough.
All right, one last question, and thanks everyone. And we do have one announcement after this. So
okay, good way to dispose of the blue cats if you don't get slime all over your boat. Drop them right into a cooler and just never handle them. Put them right into the cooler and then take a de-hooker, slide it into the bend of the hook, and then give a couple jerks. Get them off that way.
Maybe a net and a fish grip. That way.
Fish grips. Yep, you can use that. But my thing, when you really don't want to mess up the boat, and you'll see the charter guys do this quite a bit. They'll take the fish directly from the water to the cooler or the tub the fish are being kept in, whatever it is. There's no messing around with a fish on deck or anything like that. You go right into the chilling unit and then get the hook out.
Gotcha.
So what did we miss? What did we forget about? What announcement? What do we got? What? A winner! Oh my God, we didn't pick a winner.
All right, ready? Here it goes.
All right, who's the lucky winner? Sorry, Wayne.
I'm gonna see if I can get it up.
It's a good thing you were looking at those comments, laughing to yourself.
I was laughing at that one, and then I was laughing at Kevin. So, thanks for the comic relief, guys. All right, let's see if I can. Okay. Very, very, very exciting screen they give us here for the.
Yeah, this is thrilling. Thank you. What happened to the spinny wheel?
That's all. I gotta enter everything, man. This is the automatic one.
Oh, I love the spinny wheel.
I know. Okay, but this is kind of cool.
Oh, there we go. Now that's good.
What if Wayne wins?
I don't think that flies.
Kyle German.
Kyle German.
Awesome. So Kyle, hit up Lenny. Lenny at Fish Talk Mag. You got his contact.
Shoot me an email. I'll bounce it to Wayne. I don't. You might even know Wayne. I'm not even sure. But if you don't, just shoot me an email. I'll bounce it to Wayne. We'll get it snail mailed to you, and you'll be reading about these reefs.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Awesome time.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you for keeping me on track. And people, we will see you next month. And good fishing out there.
I think that's Thursday, August 1st. So we'll see you very soon. Have a great night.